There is a moment in many human relationships that almost everyone experiences, but very few people fully understand. Two people look at each other. Nothing explicit is said. No direct signal is given. And yet, something invisible begins to move between them. Tension, curiosity, an energy that feels both exciting and slightly dangerous. It is the feeling that something more could happen. This feeling is what psychologists often describe as the emergence of desire. But desire between two people is not as simple as physical attraction. In fact, one of the most surprising discoveries in relationship psychology is that sexual desire rarely begins with the body. It begins in the mind. Long before two people ever touch each other, their minds are already interacting. They are observing subtle signals. Eye contact that lasts slightly longer than usual. A smile that carries more meaning than it appears. A moment of silence that suddenly feels charged with possibility. These small signals create what psychologists call anticipatory tension. And this tension is one of the most powerful ingredients of desire, because the human brain is deeply fascinated by possibility. When something might happen, but has not yet happened, the brain becomes intensely focused. This state activates the brain's dopamine system, the same neural pathway associated with curiosity, anticipation, and reward. And once this system activates, attention narrows. The other person becomes more noticeable. Their voice sounds slightly different. Their presence feels slightly stronger. Even ordinary interactions begin to feel meaningful. But what most people never realize is that this process is not purely instinctive. It is deeply psychological. Desire between two people is shaped by three invisible forces working together: curiosity, emotional tension, and uncertainty. Without these elements, attraction often fades quickly. But when these elements appear together, desire can become extremely powerful. Curiosity makes the mind want to know more. Emotional tension creates excitement, and uncertainty keeps the brain engaged. Together, these forces transform simple attraction into something far more intense. This is why sometimes two people can feel drawn toward each other even when logic says they should not. Because desire does not always follow logic. It follows psychological stimulation. And the human mind is far more responsive to emotional energy than it is to rational explanations. In many relationships, desire begins not with certainty, but with mystery. Mystery creates attention. Attention creates emotional awareness. And emotional awareness slowly transforms into attraction. But this process is delicate. If everything becomes too predictable, desire often weakens, because the brain loses the excitement of discovery. On the other hand, if uncertainty becomes too strong, the mind may retreat to protect itself. Desire exists in a very narrow psychological space, a space where curiosity is alive but not overwhelming, where emotional tension exists but does not become fear, where two people feel drawn toward each other without fully understanding why. This balance is what makes human attraction so complex, and also so fascinating, because when this balance appears between two people, something remarkable begins to happen. They start paying more attention to each other. Small gestures become meaningful. A casual conversation feels more engaging. A simple moment of shared laughter suddenly feels important. These experiences create emotional memory, and emotional memory strengthens desire. The brain begins associating the other person with positive anticipation, which slowly deepens attraction. But this is only the beginning of the psychological process. Because once two people begin sensing this invisible tension between them, another force begins shaping their interaction. A force that many people never consciously recognize. The subtle dance between approach and restraint. Part of the mind wants to move closer. Another part hesitates. And it is within this tension that desire often grows stronger. What most people experience as attraction or desire often feels mysterious. Two people meet. Something subtle shifts between them. A look lasts slightly longer. A conversation carries an unexpected emotional charge. And suddenly the presence of the other person feels different. Stronger, more noticeable. But beneath that emotional experience, something very specific is happening inside the brain. Because desire is not simply a feeling. It is a neurological process driven by anticipation. When the mind senses the possibility of intimacy or emotional closeness, the brain begins releasing dopamine. Dopamine is often misunderstood as the chemical of pleasure. But neuroscience has revealed something much more interesting. Dopamine is not primarily about pleasure. It is about anticipation. It is the brain's signal that something meaningful might happen soon. And the human mind becomes extremely attentive when anticipation appears. This is why early attraction often feels so powerful. Two people do not yet know exactly what will happen between them. They only sense that something could happen, and this uncertainty activates the brain's motivational systems. Attention sharpens. Memory becomes more active. Small details become more noticeable. The brain begins analyzing subtle signals from the other person. Tone of voice, body language, eye contact. Even brief moments of silence begin to carry emotional meaning, because the mind is trying to answer an important question. Is this connection real, or am I imagining it? This question creates psychological tension. And tension is one of the most powerful fuels for desire. Not tension caused by conflict, but tension created by possibility. When two people sense mutual curiosity but do not yet fully reveal their intentions, the mind becomes intensely engaged. Psychologists sometimes describe this as the anticipation loop. The brain constantly predicts potential outcomes. What might happen next? Will the other person show interest? Will they pull away? Will the connection deepen? These questions create a cycle of emotional focus. And the more the mind focuses on another person, the stronger the emotional presence of that person becomes. This is why someone you barely know can suddenly occupy so much mental space. Not because you know them deeply, but because your brain is fascinated by the possibility of knowing them. Desire thrives in this environment of curiosity and anticipation. But there is another layer of psychology that makes desire even more complex. Because the brain does not simply respond to attraction. It also responds to challenge. Human attraction is strongly influenced by perceived value. When the mind senses that something is easily available, it often relaxes its focus. But when something feels slightly uncertain or slightly difficult to obtain, attention increases dramatically. This does not mean people consciously seek difficulty, but the brain naturally becomes more curious about what it cannot fully predict. This is why mystery often intensifies attraction. When someone reveals everything about themselves immediately, the mind quickly understands the situation. The uncertainty disappears, and with it, much of the psychological tension that fuels desire. But when someone reveals themselves gradually, the brain remains curious. Each interaction becomes a small discovery, and discovery stimulates emotional engagement. The mind wants to know more, but it also senses that understanding the other person will take time. This balance between closeness and mystery creates a powerful dynamic. Because the brain is constantly moving between two impulses, approach and restraint, part of the mind wants to move closer, to understand the other person, to explore the emotional connection. But another part remains cautious, observing, evaluating, trying to understand the intentions of the other person. This internal dialogue creates emotional energy, and emotional energy often manifests as desire. Another fascinating aspect of desire between two people is that it rarely develops through direct communication alone. Words can express interest, but emotional signals often carry far more influence. A certain tone in someone's voice, the way their attention focuses on you during a conversation, a subtle shift in body language. These signals communicate emotional intention without explicit explanation. And the human brain is extremely sensitive to these cues. Long before humans developed complex language, emotional signals were the primary way people understood each other's intentions. So even today, the mind processes these signals almost automatically. You might not consciously analyze someone's posture or eye contact, but your brain is quietly interpreting these signals in the background. Is this person interested? Are they comfortable? Are they emotionally open? These subtle observations shape the emotional atmosphere between two people. When signals feel warm and responsive, the mind relaxes. Curiosity increases. When signals feel distant or uncertain, the brain becomes cautious. And sometimes that caution can also intensify desire, because uncertainty keeps the mind engaged. Another psychological ingredient that strengthens desire is shared attention. When two people focus deeply on the same experience, their emotional states begin to synchronize. This phenomenon is sometimes called emotional resonance. It happens when people laugh together, when they share meaningful conversations, when they experience something emotionally stimulating at the same time. During these moments, the brain begins associating the other person with emotional intensity. And emotional intensity strengthens memory. The brain remembers people who make experiences feel vivid. Over time, these memories create emotional attachment. And attachment deepens desire. But desire remains fragile, because the psychological conditions that create it can also disappear. If curiosity fades, if emotional signals become predictable, if attention becomes divided, the brain gradually reduces the anticipation that once fueled attraction. And without anticipation, desire begins losing its emotional energy. At this stage, two people may already feel a strong connection, but they may not fully understand why. They simply sense that something between them feels alive. Conversations feel engaging. Silences feel meaningful rather than awkward. And even small interactions create emotional impact. But the deeper psychology of desire is only beginning to reveal itself. Because once attraction forms between two people, a new psychological process begins shaping their behavior, a process that is rarely discussed openly. Yet it quietly influences how desire grows or fades. The delicate balance between emotional closeness and emotional tension. And this balance determines whether attraction deepens into powerful desire or slowly disappears into familiarity. By the time attraction begins forming between two people, something subtle has already started shaping the dynamic between them. Not just curiosity, not just anticipation, but a psychological rhythm that quietly influences how desire grows or fades. This rhythm is the delicate balance between closeness and distance. Most people assume desire naturally increases when two people become closer and more comfortable with each other. But human psychology is rarely that simple. In fact, one of the most surprising discoveries in relationship research is that desire often grows strongest when closeness and distance exist at the same time. Too much distance can create insecurity. Too much closeness can create predictability. And predictability, while comforting, often weakens the psychological tension that fuels attraction. Desire lives in a narrow emotional space between these two extremes, a space where connection exists, but curiosity has not disappeared. This is why the early stages of relationships often feel so intense. Two people are emotionally close enough to feel connected, but they still remain partially unknown to each other. Their thoughts are not fully predictable. Their reactions still carry surprise. And surprise is one of the mind's strongest stimulants, because the brain becomes more attentive when outcomes are uncertain. Psychologists sometimes describe this dynamic as push and pull, not manipulation, not emotional games, but the natural rhythm of human interaction. Moments of closeness create emotional safety. Moments of slight distance create curiosity. And when these two experiences alternate naturally, emotional energy remains alive. Imagine two people who feel comfortable expressing interest in each other, but who also maintain their own independence, interests, and internal worlds. They connect, they share moments, but they do not become emotionally predictable. Each interaction still contains discovery. Each conversation reveals something new. This balance keeps the brain engaged, because the mind continues asking the same question that began the attraction in the first place. What will I learn about this person next? And as long as that question remains alive, attention remains focused. Where attention goes, emotional energy follows. And where emotional energy exists, desire often grows. Understanding this balance also explains something many couples experience but struggle to explain. Why desire sometimes fades even when love remains strong. When two people share a long history together, familiarity naturally increases. Daily routines become predictable. Habits become visible. emotional responses become easier to anticipate. The brain no longer needs to analyze or explore the other person in the same way it once did. This does not mean the relationship has become weak, but it does mean the psychological conditions that once created anticipation have changed. Without curiosity, the brain's motivational system becomes quieter. Without novelty, emotional excitement decreases. And slowly, the relationship may begin feeling calmer, stable, comfortable, but sometimes less emotionally intense. Many couples mistakenly interpret this change as a loss of attraction, but often it is simply the mind adapting to familiarity, because the human brain naturally reduces its response to experiences it encounters repeatedly. This adaptation helps humans function efficiently, but it can also reduce the emotional spark that once defined a connection. Yet there is another truth that many people overlook. Desire does not only depend on novelty, it also depends on attention. When two people genuinely focus on each other again with curiosity, the brain can rediscover emotional depth. Because the person you think you fully understand is still evolving. Every human mind is constantly changing. New experiences shape thoughts. New challenges reshape perspectives. New emotions create new layers of identity. But discovering those layers requires presence. When people stop observing each other with curiosity, they begin relating to an outdated version of their partner, the version they believe they already understand. And that assumption slowly replaces discovery. But when attention returns, when two people begin exploring each other again, something interesting happens. The brain begins noticing details it once overlooked. Conversations regain depth. Moments regain emotional meaning. And sometimes the psychological spark that once fueled attraction begins quietly returning. Perhaps the most important truth about desire between two people is how invisible it can be. Unlike physical attraction, psychological desire often develops slowly, through conversations, shared attention, emotional signals that pass quietly between two minds. It rarely announces itself clearly. Instead, it appears through subtle changes in awareness. You notice the other person more often. You remember small details about them. You find yourself curious about their thoughts and experiences. And before you fully understand why, their presence begins carrying emotional significance. This is the hidden psychology of desire, not simply physical interest, but the gradual creation of emotional focus, where one person begins occupying more space in another person's mind. And the more space they occupy, the more powerful the connection becomes. Sexual desire between two people is often misunderstood as something purely physical. But in reality, it is one of the most psychological experiences human beings can share. It begins with curiosity, grows through anticipation, and deepens when emotional attention becomes focused on another mind. Desire is not simply about attraction. It is about the way two people stimulate each other's awareness, the way they create moments of emotional tension, the way curiosity keeps pulling their attention back toward each other. And when those elements appear together, desire can become one of the most powerful forces in human connection. but it remains delicate, because the same familiarity that creates comfort can also quiet the tension that once fueled attraction. Which is why understanding the psychology of desire is so important. Not to control it, but to recognize the conditions that allow it to exist. Moments of curiosity, moments of emotional presence, moments where two people allow themselves to remain slightly mysterious to each other. Because sometimes the strongest connections are not built by fully knowing another person, but by continuing to discover them. If this exploration helped you understand something deeper about attraction and human psychology, subscribe to Voxlore Audio, because the most powerful forces shaping human relationships are often the ones we rarely stop to examine.